Parker. I'm the coordinator of chamber music for this program, and I asked Alex if I could introduce Elena, because I've known her for a few years, and probably a story you may not even know is that the person that started this program was Nancy Hess, and she was the director for 15 to 20 years, but she always used to make a comment about one or two players a year, every other year. She would call them the whole package. And there was one day when Elena was playing in a recital, Carmen Fantasy, and Nancy leaned over and said, "Well, that's the whole package." So, I don't think you knew that one. I would take up the whole time if I just listed everything that Elena does. But, she's been soloist with many, many major orchestras around the country, numerous chamber music groups with eclectic repertoire, CDs, an internet fame during the COVID when she and her husband did their jukebox concerts from the living room, which were actually a lot of fun. And winner of the Sphinx competition, co-founder of Intermission, a yoga series, extremely helpful for musicians, and from what I just saw recently, a Tumblr. So, I did see you about that. This is Elena Urioste, a former student here, and we are so thrilled to have her come back and work with our students. And now I'll turn it over to Alex.
We have two students performing today. Our first student that will be performing is Kirsten Jonathan, who is a student of J Freivogel. Kirsten will be performing the second movement of Max Bruch's Violin Concerto No. 1 in G minor. Our second performer today will be Eyal Allen, a student of Kim Fischer, who will play the first movement of Giovanni Battista Viotti's Concerto No. 23 in G major. All right, if Kirsten wants to come up.
beautiful. So many beautiful things. Thank you so much for that. Um, so I had two ideas. One kind of like a boring, like very traditional violin-y thing that I wanted to talk about. And then the other one is a bit more conceptual and ties in um my love for yoga and how you can sort of transfer principles from that over to playing the violin. Um, I love yoga and I have learned so much about playing the violin from doing things like breathing and coordinating movements with breath. And I think we can work with that a little bit um, on this movement. I just want to say I think this piece, like all three movements, it's kind of the perfect piece in a way. I've always been a huge fan of this piece, but actually the more I go through life, I think you can practice so many great things with this music, particularly breathing and the impact that breathing can have on the direction or the shape or the contour of a phrase from the inside out. You don't even have to change that much about what you're doing interpretively or physically. You can simply start to breathe in a more intentional way and sort of watch it transform from the inside out. So that is something that I'd love to practice with you. Um, yeah, especially at the beginning because I think this piece or this movement, it's like a slow burn. You hear the same material a whole bunch of times, intensifying. And I think especially after the excitement of the first movement, um, it can be really, really moving to find a space that's still and maybe a bit more meditative before the excitement ramps back up and we get into the real like heat and passion of the second movement. So yeah, breathing is the thing I'd love to, the more kind of swirly thing I'd love to experiment with you. The boring violin thing is I just want you to start, maybe you're doing this already. Excuse me. Maybe you're doing this already, but just to be always have in your mind um, a level of consciousness about whether what you're doing is a shift or a slide. And I think the distinction is important because slides are expressive, they're vocal, they really mean something to the music. And shifts are functional. And one is like there's no right or wrong answer, although like certainly I think there are moments where if there isn't a slide, you would all go like, oh. Um, um, but sometimes I find it a little bit hard to tell with you. There's something that is like almost beautiful, but then in the end I'm like, no, no, that was just like a transportation thing. In which case I want to hear it less. However, if you really want to make something beautiful and vocal, I want to hear it more. So basically to bring out the slides and cover the shifts a little bit more. And I noticed this mostly at the beginning, again when we were sort of ramping up, finding our bearings. So maybe it'll be totally different this time around. So would you mind just playing, I don't know, a few lines again from the beginning of the movement? And I'll like wave my arms because I know it's hard to hear over the screen. Okay, sorry, waving. From the F to the C was almost really beautiful. But again, I was like, is she shifting or is that really like a. Sorry, my singing is not beautiful, but I'm going to do it anyway. Da, da, da. To me, I mean, it's a big enough distance certainly to warrant a shift. You're not going across the string, so you obviously want it to be lyrical. Um, in that case, I think it could be more beautiful. I think you can take more time. There's a million ways to slide beautifully. I notice that your tendency is to do the no, slide with the old finger. Yeah. Da, da, da. Whereas my go-to is slide with the new finger. But like whatever works for you. Just really own it. I think it sounds slightly apologetic right now. So if you're going to do it, like make sure you vibrate leading up to the slide, through the slide, and the new finger so that everything is like luscious and chocolatey. Um, so that was one example already. I'll let you play more than four notes next time. And breathing right off the bat, I think it was better this time than the first time. The first time I was like, wow, your pianist is really telepathic because she knew exactly when you're supposed to come in. This time was a bit better. You were inclusive with your breathing. But I think not only can you breathe to sort of cue yourselves both in, but then what happens once you've started playing? Just you don't even have to answer this. It can be just something you're thinking about. But the ba, da, ya, da, da, what shape does that have? If you were to, I'm going like this. So let's imagine I'm playing the accordion. If you were to play this on the accordion, I have no idea how accordions work, but you know that feeling of it looks like it's breathing in and out like a pair of lungs. For me, it would maybe go. You know, there's always this sense of inhaling and exhaling. I'm really interested, like, how on earth does the accordion work? That's for another day. But you can do that with your bow, you know? Exhale, inhale, all the way to here. Something like that. So think about what's going on literally inside of you and how it might inform what's happening with the bow. Okay, now you play and I'll be quiet. Good, 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 good. That was so that I was much more convinced by that. Another thing that happens when you're breathing really mindfully and it's impacting the sort of nuance of the phrase is it also, if you're thinking about breathing with or without the violin, it sort of forces you to be in the present moment. Because if you're thinking, okay, now I'm inhaling, now I'm exhaling, your mind doesn't really have space to wander. You can, I mean, this is sort of like the whole foundation of meditation, which I'm still working on. But if the idea is just to sit there and not be distracted by your thoughts, a good way to do that is just to think, I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out, I'm breathing in, breathing out, so that your mind like can't really be bothered by other stuff. And I find this a really helpful tool, especially in performance if I'm nervous. You know, my brain loves to invent all sorts of things that can go wrong and like, you know, all sorts of distractions. So if I think, inhale, put the bow on the string, draw a down bow, or whatever, exhale, down bow, inhale, up bow, that's like a really great way to focus my mind. So it removes all sorts of clutter. Now the only thing that I noticed this time that at all took me out of the flow of your playing is there were times where you sort of like cued yourself and your pianist, which is great, but I heard a little bit of interruption in the sound. Even actually in the first two notes, da, da, I heard a little bit of a hiccup. So instead of bobbing your head or bobbing your scroll, can you do it just with your breath? And I don't know, I have a feeling that it will be so clear your intention that you'll play together and you won't have to make another movement. So something like obviously I can't really demonstrate, like it would be better if I could play the violin, but it's late here and my neighbor will be angry. But do you know what I mean? Rather than making a physical movement, having it be from inside. Let's see if it works. If it doesn't, that's okay too. Good. Okay, here was an offending slide or shift, and I don't know what the answer was. From your F to your F. Da-da-da. So is that an expressive thing or a transportation thing?
Uh, like a shift, like a regular shift.
I can't hear you, sorry.
Like transportation.
Transportation. Okay. If that's the case, I would just be aware of what your bow is doing because right now I hear a little whisker in between the two things, and I want to just shave it off. Da-da. Do you know that you're allowed to lift your bow off the string? As string players, I feel like we get obsessed with like sustaining and making long lines, but like a thing that not many people tell us is that we're allowed to like pick it up and move it somewhere else, especially if we don't want a noise to be audible. So you're allowed to go. It doesn't mean that there will be like a rest or a hole. It just means that there will be a comma, which I think is like perfectly appropriate in that point in the phrase anyway. You've said a bit of the sentence, or even a whole no, yeah, a bit of the sentence. You're just pausing to take a breath, and then you continue the next part of the sentence. And I think it's necessary, even with instruments, and potentially sustain forever, for us to use this breath to sort of re-energize the phrase and just yeah give context to the whole thing. Um, Start somewhere that you can do that again. Oh, sorry. Another one. B flat to B flat. I hear a little like meow, and it's neither sorry, it's neither beautiful nor functional. Um, but again, I think you could. There's no wrong answers here. Like you can make anything beautiful. Like Chrysler slides literally everywhere. It almost never makes sense. But somehow he does it so convincingly that you're like, obviously, I want to slide there and like make everything nice and soupy. Alternately, there are people who rarely slide. It's not my jam, but their playing is very convincing. So I think it's just up to you what you want to be saying. So what do you think?
No slide.
No slide. Great. Let's try with like really no slide. Go from just the C flat. Good, good, good. I liked that. And you don't have to like decide on one answer forever. You can be playing with this and you know surprise yourself in performance. Like I said, there's no wrong answers to this. Only like lots of different options. Just be clear about what it is that you want, what you think is beautiful, and what you want to convey to the audience in any given moment. I just wanted to try just from where you started again, the C. Da-da-da. This is a great place to practice the breathing. If you could be thinking of that phrase as one big sort of if you imagine like a hairpin, you might not well, actually, that little phrase sort of is a hairpin sort of like this. But if you imagine that it doesn't just mean volume, that it also means like the direction of breath, that might do something very cool to it from the inside. Do you see what I mean? I can actually hear a difference already. The sound feels, first of all, much more like anchored inside of you, which is always the goal, I think. We want to feel like our sound is literally coming out from our bodies, even though we've got like all this equipment in the way. But then also that the phrasing is really an extension of what is happening inside. That's why I find like yoga cues so helpful for me, because it's, if you hear a teacher who cues really well, it should always be the breath and then what you do. So inhale, reach your arms up, exhale, bring them down. So you're never just like flinging your arms up in the air. Everything is coming first and foremost from your lungs, from the inside of the body. And I love thinking of playing the violin that way. You know, inhale, make this crescendo, exhale, gently recede, something like that. So try once more from the. I'm really sorry about my singing, guys. Good. Really beautiful. I feel like the slides versus shifts sort of resolve themselves more when things heat up a little bit, which is great information to have. So just be extra mindful when it's those like really transparent or peaceful passages that you're being, yeah, just giving extra care to how you're moving around the fingerboard, because you obviously have like such great control over the instrument. So it's really a choice and just like extra sophisticated listening. Um, yeah, and I'm sure whatever choices you'll make will be beautiful. Keep playing around with, yeah, just making all of your linear movements just as beautiful as you can, especially in music like this. And keep playing around with the breathing, because I think it could be like really transformative, and it might not feel like all that much is different at first. It is subtle, but it's also very profound, and I think could like really take your playing even further to that next level. So I think just being aware of time, we should probably move on, but thank you so much.
And next we have Eyal Allen. If Eyal will come forward. Eyal, again, is performing the first movement of Viotti's Concerto number 23 in G major. 22, sorry.
Amazing. Wow. Okay, I don't know this piece at all. I've actually never played any Viotti, so I am by no means an expert. Um, I I was having real flashbacks to being in, I don't know, maybe it was that room, maybe it was another one, and um well, just the idea of playing like virtuosic music in general, and how in my head I was going to say used to, but how in my head I get about it, now, equivalent to then. Um, and I was just thinking, like, there's so much. I don't know how to say this without like, I don't want to I don't want it to seem like I'm about to deliver a lesson in like fraud. But what I have learned over the years is there's so much to delivering something really convincingly that exists really outside of the like time and effort you've put in to making this as great as it is, because it's really really great. But my takeaway is, like, I think you're fantastic, but I knew exactly when you were stressed out each time you were stressed out about something. And the thing is, like, I'm part of what, like 0.00032% of people in the universe who would actually know why or when something is stressful on the violin. Like, it's a very, very tiny percentage of people who actually knows, what it's like to play something like that. Um, most people have no idea. Most really good people or like musically inclined people have no idea. So it is a little bit, I don't want to say about faking it because it's not, I don't, you never want to be anyone that you're not. But it's about sort of, you know, that thing that they say, like if you're recording an answering machine, that you're supposed to smile. So instead of being like, "Hi, my name is Elena Urioste," I go, "Hi, my name is Elena Urioste," and it sounds like a little bit friendlier. It's like that. I'm not being fake. I'm just smiling. Like my tongue goes in a different place in my mouth. My mouth is shaped a little bit different, so I sound a little happier. In the same way, you know, if we're, I know, like your tell is that you start to turn away and your violin gets lower, and that's how I know that something's hard. Um, and that may be it. But from an audience perspective, um, like not only will you look like it's not hard if you keep, you know, facing forward and being, you know, the confident, having the confident posture that you do so often, and even in those moments, you know, smile for the answering machine. What if you raised your violin a little bit or turned out? There are so many like very famous violinists who like aren't really playing what's on the page, but they, you know, they like at that moment they go diagonally up, and the whole audience is like, "Wow!" Um, so this is all to say that again, not to be fraudulent, but that not even image, but the energy that you project is contagious. So if all of a sudden you're being like, then that's what our takeaway will be. If you're you and confident and lift the violin up, our takeaway will be like, wow, what a confident young violinist. And probably, now this is like, unfortunately, the real reason why you should do this. It might make it easier because a lot of the time I feel like you're pressing down and you're sort of you're giving yourself less space to move around the fiddle and more sort of like um, pressure, not in a productive way. I felt sometimes like if you just raised your fiddle and gave your armpit a little bit more space, you'd be able to sort of whiz around more easily. Does this make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's not that I want you to fake anything, but I think you should just trust that what you're doing is great. Um, and also, here's another thing I've learned about virtuosic repertoire. Because honestly, I was having flashbacks to my teacher when I was at Temple Prep, made me play Paganini 1 in that room, and I honestly just wanted to curl into a hole and die and like never show my face again. But I'm sort of glad he made me do it because I guess it was good for me. And actually, what was really good was that everything else felt a lot easier after that, and I never have to do that again. Um, but this piece is really cool. Um, a thing about virtuosic music is that we have it in our minds, like we see all this stuff on the page, and it's supposed to just whiz by. But I think the real virtuosos on any instrument have this gift of bending time to their advantage. So if something is difficult and needs a little bit more time, you don't, there's no rule that you have to do it exactly in time, but like really make a feature, a confident feature where you're like, yeah, this is cool. Like be a rock star, you know? Yeah. I think you could rock out more in general. That is my thesis statement. You can rock out more, whatever that means to you. So let's go from the beginning, and maybe at some point we can find like a stressful passage to visit and we can conquer it. Good. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
I love that slide. Do ya? Can you in my chamber ensemble we're having a moment This will definitely date me, but basically when we when we go to do any shift that we're like a little bit nervous about, we go into what we're thinking of as Mariah Carey mode, where she, you know how pop stars will go like the like and like it's that sort of like we just need to give ourselves permission to be real divas. So instead of there, it sounds so beautiful, but again, you're going down. What if you went? Give yourself a little diva moment right there. Great. Already, I'm loving this more. When, like, especially when you go into the cadenzas, it just made me think of like some like cheesy guitar riff, and like I don't know if you've ever been to like a rock concert or anything not in the genre of classical, but like people go nuts when even like it's unbelievable what people go nuts for. Like things that can't be that hard, just like a guitarist going like on the same note over and over. Whereas this is like actually impressive. So let people be impressed. You know, if this was probably the time of Viotti, people would be like, wow, and like throwing their drinks up in the air and it would be like a party. So allow that to happen. Can we skip to something hard and stressful? Something coming up? Okay. Yeah, great. Keep that. It's it's so much better when you so what I see happening is I think you're just when you go down, you're sort of like compressing your elbow into your armpit a little bit, which I think by nature like makes all of these muscles a little bit stickier. Whereas if you give yourself a little bit more, I have a colleague who likes to say like play with air in the armpits, just a little bit of air in your armpit, like let the sweat air out a little bit, and already you can just sort of glide around the fingerboard much more easily. And I hopped out while you were playing because I just wanted to get one of my favorite investments is a $5 foam yoga block. If you put it next to the wall, if you're practicing, I'm sitting at a piano right now, so I'm just gonna go like this. And you can basically use it to prop up your violin. Just this feeling of the resistance and being supported. The block is just so that your scroll doesn't get hurt on the wall. And like positioning it where ideally you'd like your scroll to be. It just gives you a sense of what might be possible in that position. So it's something that I would recommend if you get a chance. Okay, do your stressful bit. Well, that didn't sound stressful at all. I'm almost disappointed. that sounded really that sounded really easy. And of course, it's this thing where like the first time you play something in a master class, you're nervous, and then the second time you play something in a master class, you're less nervous, but everyone's like, "Wow, the teacher's such a genius." But really it's just because you're more comfortable. I'm not a genius at all. You sound awesome. One thing I was thinking as you were playing through, there are so many different kinds of virtuosity in this music, and I think not unlike Paganini, this could also be described as quite operatic. There are lovely melodies that pop up, but even all of you know, violin-y stuff, it each bit has like a really distinct character. And whereas this time I was able to feel like, oh wow, that's really jaunty and charming. The first time all the way through, it felt like each virtuosic bit was sort of like and like that was the character. It was a bit intense and like a bit stressed. Whereas I think if you went and assigned either an adjective or like a facial expression, or when you're in the privacy of your own home in your room, like do a little dance to each of the thing, that really, really helps me, honestly. I'm not afraid to do it in front of anyone. So actually, when you were playing that, I was just sort of going like this because it's just really silly. And then there were other parts where I was like, you know, rocking out. And I think if you can free yourself up physically in private, you don't have to do it in front of everyone right now. Um, I find that transfers really nicely to the violin. This also helps in chamber music too. If you can find like a communal idea about what you're doing means, or like can be related to, it's sometimes easier than being like, okay, I want to play this faster and louder and more brilliantly because like, but you want to go like this? Do you want to go like this? You know, who knows? Um, okay, let's do one more stressful thing, and then I think I'm supposed to leave a few minutes for questions, or maybe I'm supposed to do that now. I don't know. One more stressful.
Yeah, we'll do the stressful bit and then we can get to your questions. We have a little bit of extra time today.
Okay. But see, you're not even stressed anymore, so I don't even know what to call it.
I was rushing that time, so it was a little harder to play.
So for something like that, I mean, it could just all be like a notch slower if that feels too
Definitely.
twist of your fingers. Or you can like this is the very sort of definition of rubato. It might take like slowing it down and really sort of relearning it, but like if you need more time on the trills, then just rush a little bit on the not trills. I mean, it sounds really obvious, but like if you want everything to even out at that tempo, I think it's just figuring out where you need more time and then where you can give it back. That is literally rubato. But but also if you played it exactly like that, but just like stood up a little straighter, I would be totally convinced. You know what I mean? Because it's like I said, it's not an issue of faking or like being inauthentic because people can also tell that and it's kind of gross. But it's just the sort of the confidence and the aura you project. And if you are comfortable and really rooted in what you're doing and like welcome us into that, then we'll be like totally on board with it. So I think, and that's something that you can practice too. Like you have to practice like feeling confident. And if at first it might not feel, convincing at all, but like anything you practice, you'll get good at it. So if you practice going like this, you're going to be really good at that too. But if you practice going like this, that'll feel natural. Yeah, so just keep at it. It sounds amazing. And thank you for introducing me to this piece.
We have time for maybe one or two questions, and then we're gonna take a picture. Does anybody have any questions? You don't have to come up here in front of the camera. No questions? You have an international artist in front of you, and you have no questions? Not even silly questions?
It can be total. I hope it's a silly question.
We have one question right here.
Well, no, it's so many of the things you do, you created for yourself. How did you go about, was it like one day, I really want to play this piece, let's get this group together and perform?
It's true. I feel like I'm at a stage in life where I I just want to find ways of like doing what I want to do and then convincing people to pay me for it. Which is like yeah, welcome to my career class. Um um but I think that's sort of what it should. I mean, we're in music for goodness sake. We can like sort of make up rules. Why not? So yeah, a lot of it is, I really want to play this. Well, I mean, the reason I founded with my husband our chamber collective is because we very selfishly just wanted to play music that we loved with people that we loved, and it wound up being this sort of like very diverse, neglected composer champion entity, kind of by accident. But it started just from a place of want to play cool stuff with cool people. And also, like not dissimilarly, my yoga program is because I wanted to make a thing that I would have wanted when I was younger. Practicing so many hours a day and not having a clue how to take care of my body or, counter anything that I was doing or combat my like debilitating nerves on stage. I wanted to sort of like treat my former and current self to the sort of care and like um, yeah, attentiveness to the physical and mental well-being areas that I didn't have growing up. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
And then you convince people to pay you for it. So
That's the hard part.
All right.
you know what? I find honestly, sometimes you just have to ask, which is a thing that like that's really been the motto of my 30s as a woman in my 30s is you don't get what you don't ask for a lot of the time, and people aren't mind readers. And yeah, sometimes you just have to ask and like definitely ask nicely, and they can say no, but if you hadn't asked, they would never know. So yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. This was such a great
Thank you. It's like I can't even tell you what an honor it is to be back in the room figuratively, and I really hope to be back in that room physically, literally very soon.
Yeah, of course. It was great having you. I'm gonna end the live stream and then we're gonna take a picture.
Thank you.